Excellent. Well, with that, welcome everyone. We wanted to give a few minutes for everybody to join on the call. We had a lot of people that signed up for today's event. So I see most of us are now on there. So first of all, I am Hiran Imbuldenia. I'm the current president of the Oxford University Society in Sri Lanka. I'd like to warmly welcome everyone to today's session. We've worked really hard to bring this together for you. It's a really engaging lineup, and hopefully we should be able to answer most of your questions and make you more confident and successful in applying to the University of Oxford. You'll have to bear with us a little bit. As I said, we've been really overwhelmed with the response we got for this event. There's over 200 of you that responded. We wanted to make sure that we made this as interactive as possible. So we are in this large meeting format. My colleague Rishan will walk you through the logistics of being on this call in just a minute, but I see you've already got your lines on mute, so if you can make sure that it stays on mute for the duration of the plenary session. When we go into the Q&A at the end and the breakouts, you can unmute yourselves and ask the question you need to ask. A quick word about the Oxford University Society here. We've been around for many years. We're a community that represents the alumni of the university in Sri Lanka. It's part of our mission to see many more of you being able to apply and successfully gain admission to the university. So I hope that with today's session, we're able to help you in some small way. I know that applying to any university is a daunting process, and Oxford in particular can be even more so. I recall my own experience when applying to the university a very long time ago now. And at that time, the only help that I got was a university prospectus in the school library. There was no internet, no Google, certainly no sessions like this to help. So my most striking memory at that time was opening the back pages of the Oxford prospectus and realizing that there were 36 colleges at that time, I think, to choose from, and thinking to myself, gosh, how can it be so difficult to apply to Oxford if there are so many colleges? But that was my experience. I'm sure yours will be slightly different. I hope that today's session is helpful to you and you leave today with a much better understanding of the application process. Again, I'd really like to thank all our panelists who've really volunteered their time and energy to be with us. So thank you as we get started. With that, let me hand over to Rishan, who's the Vice President of the Oxford University Society in Sri Lanka, to walk you through the proceedings for today. Thanks.
Thank you, Hiran. As just to echo what Hiran said, welcome to the Applying to Oxford virtual event. My name is Rishan De Silva, and I'm the Vice President of the Alumni Society. I completed my master's at Oxford in 2016. So let me just share my screen with all of you. So once again, thank you for taking the time to join us today. I remember when I was seated in your shoes, like just the same before my undergrad, I hardly knew what universities were out there, and I was not really sure where I wanted to go, let alone what to study. In fact, I ended up learning about and applying to my undergraduate university, Columbia University, because the US president had gone there, Barack Obama, which was definitely not the best reason to choose a university, but at least the UK Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, also went to Oxford. You all have taken the right step, as Hiran mentioned earlier, in taking the time to do this research and find out more about Oxford. We have a great set of speakers who have generously donated their time to come and share their experiences with you as well. Before we begin, I wanted to just outline some general rules that we have. The raise hand function on Zoom exists. There's a little hand icon, and it exists for the purpose of asking different questions. You can use that during the general Q&A session and during the moderated Q&A session at the end. If you want to ask a specific question during the panel, you can write it down in the chat box to everyone, and we will try to get to all the questions at the end. Cameras are allowed for all members. In fact, they're encouraged when asking a question so that all the presenters know who they're speaking to. As Hiran said, please mute your microphones and unmute when you have something to say or when you're asking a question. And we are observing Chatham House rules in this presentation. As an outline to the event, first we have Ayuni Munasinghe from the British High Commission, who will talk about the visas and the processes of applying and the Chevening scholarship. Then we have Louise Cowcher from the British Council in Colombo. Louise will present about scholarships available, upcoming student engagement events and resources in Sri Lanka, as well as the COVID rules and other issues. Then we have our main event. James Brown from the University of Oxford will present about Oxford, the admissions process and application process overview, and other resources available. And lastly, we have a moderated Q&A panel with current and former students, which I will be facilitating. This will be followed by a general Q&A session, as well as where we will have initial plenary session, and then a general breakout session where we'll break out into different rooms where you can ask this different speaker-specific questions. With that said, we can begin with our first speaker. Our first speaker is Ayuni Munasinghe. Ayuni Munasinghe is the Communications Manager and Chevening Officer at the British High Commission in Colombo. Ayuni plays tennis in her free time and enjoys traveling to anywhere with a beach. Welcome, Ayuni.
Thanks, Rishan. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this and to all the alumni that organized this. I'll just very briefly talk about two things, just to start off with regarding the visas. As you know, currently, the global pandemic has restricted a lot of flights in and out of Sri Lanka. So if you are applying to go to the UK, I highly recommend you be in touch with your International Students Councillor in universities. They are very helpful in supporting you with any queries. As is the British High Commission, we don't have a specific visa team dedicated at the High Commission itself, like we used to, but we are more than happy to always take your queries and see if you have anything that we can support you with. Your visa applications will directly go to VFS, and I would say that make that a priority always. But if you have any questions regarding visas, applying documents, please do send them through to us. Our general email is, I can share it here, or if you type in British High Commission on Google, it should be available to you as well. We take DMs, direct messages, and queries through social media, so please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are always happy to help, especially people who are going to the UK on their studies. We are always encouraging on that. So don't hesitate to ask us any questions. On visas, it's a bit slow these days, given the global pandemic. VFS is operating at very reduced hours, but they are taking queries, and they have also started a new home service where they come to your home to collect documents and to deliver your passport, etc. It is at an extra cost, but it is also in a very safe and healthy manner, so none of you are put in danger as well. So that's on visas. I'd like to actually very quickly move on to the Chevening scholarships. So as most of you are looking to study your undergraduate, unfortunately, this might not be very applicable, but it could be something that you might be hopefully looking forward to in a few years when you're ready to do your master's, and maybe some of you can do your master's as well. So I think Louise will talk a bit about the scholarships available from British Council. So I'm going to focus on the UK's flagship product, the Chevening scholarships. So very briefly, for those of you, let me just put my screen on full. All right. So Chevening scholarships, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's the UK government's global scholarship program. It is their flagship scholarship program. It's available in over 160 countries, and it supports a one-year master's at any UK university across there. Chevening scholarships are aimed at anyone who is passionate about creating positive change in their home. So it's not just a scholarship where we say, go study, come back, and you're fine. We want to know why you want the Chevening scholarship. So we want to know what you're passionate about and how you are planning to benefit to your country. So the UK government is paying us to come and study in their country and come back and develop our own country. I'd say that's a pretty good deal. So the eligibility criteria is actually very simple. There is absolutely no age category, and it is not discriminatory on any subject areas. You can be any age, and all you have to do is be in a Chevening eligible country, which Sri Lanka is, have an undergraduate degree, at least 2 years of working experience, and not having received funding from the UK government before. Okay, so what does a Chevening scholarship cover? It fully covers your tuition fees. No, there are no hidden clauses despite the asterisk there. You have no obligation to pay your tuition fees under the Chevening scholarship. You are provided with a living allowance that covers your accommodation, your food, and a small stipend. You will not be stranded in the UK once you're done. There's a return flight ticket with your name on it once you become a scholar. And there are additional grants depending on the situation to cover any essential expenditure. For example, scholars that are going in last year and this year, their PCR tests, their quarantine, everything was covered. So that's what it covers. So the aim of making sure that the entire scholarship is covered is to make sure that scholars are fully able to dedicate their time to their studies and also to network. So you are paid to go and have coffee with the networks that you can do business with later on in life as well. What does it offer? So in addition to being a part of the UK university system, and I have to tell you, the Chevening website offers a plethora of universities. I think there are at least over 50 universities that you can select from there. Chevening itself, the Secretariat itself, organizes networking events, trips across the UK, volunteering opportunities, all of which you receive recognition and awards for as well. There have been people who have done internships at the BBC. They've worked with NHS. We had a couple of scholars last year that actually worked with NHS during the global pandemic, which was fantastic. Okay, so my real selling point is the Chevening applications are almost here. We start accepting applications on the 3rd of August till the 2nd of November. Everything is online in the Chevening website. You will find updates as well on their Twitter page. So if you do think that you are eligible and if you are interested, please, I definitely recommend all of you to go look at it. If you are yet to get to that eligible place, I suggest you still take a look at it because it's definitely something that you can work towards. It's something that people have, spent 5-6 years kind of building their careers, building their academic life to work towards. Chevening social media, I think I can safely say nobody looks at a newspaper these days. Everything, all the updates are on social media. Everything, promotional material this year is definitely on social media. So do check out the website. It has a lot of information, and I would definitely recommend the FAQ section, where they have uploaded a lot of questions that people have asked over the years, which you will find very useful. But I would definitely encourage you to follow our Sri Lanka channels, which I have a lot of testimonials by alumni as well. And in this instance, I'd like to say we actually have a couple of scholars at Oxford right now as we speak, who have gone, and we are looking at about 2 scholars who are looking to go to Oxford this year as a part of the scholarship as well. So Oxford is one of the top 5 universities that scholars apply for. So in addition to filling out a very tough Chevening application, we have very successful scholars applying to Oxford and getting in as well. So we are I'm more than happy. I'm very happy to be here today, but I'm very happy to say that Oxford is one of our biggest and top partners over the past few years. So yes, I'm happy to take any questions at the end if anyone has any.
Thank you, Ayuni. Yes, as she mentioned, there will be a question session at the end where you can ask her questions. Next up, we have Louise Cowcher, who is the Director of Education at the British Council in Colombo. Louise has worked overseas for more years than she cares to remember. And she has been based in South Asia since 2013. She's been in Sri Lanka for the last 4 years as Director Education and English at the British Council. She has spent her time traveling whenever possible around the island and has filled her social media with so many photographs of Sri Lanka that she now has a long waiting list of people wanting to come and visit all of the places for the all-important Instagram shots. Welcome, Louise.
Thank you, Rashan. Yes, I'm joining you here from my dining room. COVID-19 has been very unkind, as you can see from my hair. I'm going to share my screen with you, hopefully. Where's the share screen? As you can see, I'm not very technical.
Louise, do you want me to share it for you?
I've pressed share. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Yes. And now I need to go to slideshow, which is a bit problematic because there's a little barrier thing at the top. Clearly, as everybody can see, I have not studied IT skills. Transitions, how do I get to the slideshow?
You can go to view.
I beg your pardon?
You can go to view.
I can't see a thing. I've had to switch the lights off. Well, bear with me and we'll stick with it like that. The most important thing is you can see it. We've shared this with Rashan, who I'm sure can make this available to anybody who would like to see it at a later date. So I have the pleasure of talking to you about COVID-19. I'm sure we've all heard enough about it, but things are easing up in the UK, which makes face-to-face study possible. I will be sharing information on the current travel guidance to reassure you on issues of public health and to mention some resources, which include scholarships. Well, the good news is, after a hard year, the UK is unlocking after the nation lockdowns earlier this year. A very large percentage of the population have been vaccinated, so well on the path to beginning to go back to normal. The good news is universities are preparing to welcome students back in the autumn term. They have obviously continued to deliver high quality education throughout the pandemic, but are delighted to be able, all things going well, to go back to face-to-face in the autumn while following government guidelines. Now, obviously, contact your college in the university, the college you're targeting, or the university international student advisors to always get the most recent information. Moving on. There is a lot of support for students, particularly at this very, very challenging time. And I'm sure it'd be reassuring for all of you and your families to know that hopefully, as you study in the UK, there is a lot of support for you at difficult times, including pickups, if you need to self-isolate, support in making sure you get emergency food parcels, and also, and I think this is really important to emphasize because we mustn't underestimate the stress that the pandemic could give, ongoing mental health support. But as I said before, contact your university, contact Oxford, contact the college, and always get the up-to-date information. Well-being is very, very important to all universities. People are away from home, they're away from their families, in a new environment, possibly being away for the first time. You know, it's that thrill of meeting new people and having new experiences, but it can provide additional stresses. So there are student welfare services for anybody maybe falling behind in their studies, hopefully because they're having a good time. But there are student support officers, academic advisors who can support you with your study, support on accommodation, health, faith and worship, and of course a general practitioner is a general medical doctor who is your primary port of call. There are additional organisations that support, but I think it's worth emphasising that physical, emotional, and mental well-being are taken very seriously because they are key to having a successful, a positive and happy experience. I think that's really worth emphasising that. Now, the practicalities of travel, obviously visas have been mentioned already, but I think it is important to acknowledge that travel and quarantine rules and regulations in the UK, as in Sri Lanka, are subject to change. And you know, we know from the last few weeks there can be lockdowns and travel restrictions, same in the UK. So the advice is always to contact, stay in touch with the university, with the college, and find out what the latest is. There is a traffic light system in the UK. The rules are very similar in the 4 countries of the UK. So obviously Oxford is in England. There is a traffic light system which influences what happens to people on arrival. So the protocols that have to be followed reflect the point of departure. Sri Lanka is currently on the red list, which means that on arrival, well, there's a pre-departure test as normal when going everywhere, but on arrival, it's necessary to stay in quarantine, much the same as it currently is in Sri Lanka, with the conditions of the COVID tests. And so that is, as here, in a sort of safe and secure government-approved hotel for 2 weeks. The cost of this quarantine, as you can see, is $1,750, but that includes food, accommodation, transport, testing, so it's a pretty all-inclusive package. Now, obviously, we hope that Sri Lanka, including me, it'd be nice to go home. I've not been back for a year and a half. It'd be nice to see family and friends. So we're all hoping that by the time September, October comes around, that the COVID situation in Sri Lanka will be in a position where Sri Lanka is back on the amber list, which requires self-isolation on arrival, but not necessarily in a government-approved location. But again, the advice is constantly refer to the international advisor at the university, or if you know the college, at the college. There are slightly different conditions for England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So it is important to be aware of where you can go to, you can't go to. As I'm sure you appreciate, this is a very fluid situation. So again, it's about checking these things out when you're there. In practical terms, when you get there, it is important to have an international bank account and banking, so you can access your funds. And also in terms of travel around the country, because obviously UK, it's pretty small, and as that introductory video said, I mean, a huge part of the experience is just, it's just sort of making the most of what's available, traveling around, meeting friends, in addition to the study. Yes, again, back on public health. There is a national health services, and international students can access the National Health Service in the UK. In terms of the COVID-19, it is a legal requirement to wear a mask, in public and public transport, very similar to here, to be perfectly honest. So, we're all used to wearing masks, and so I don't think you will experience much of a difference in the UK. But as I said, public health services are accessible by international students, which I think is extremely reassuring, either through the local doctor, the general practitioner, or through accident and emergency services. And that worry about what happens if I get ill, what happens, hopefully it won't happen, but it is an area of concern. So I think it's reassuring to know that you will have access to high quality health services. Yes, there are a range of resources available. Many of those are on the British Council websites. As you can see, the government has a range of information resources about COVID-19, specifically for international students. And so there are a lot of places where I'm sure you have very specific questions which relate to your personal circumstances, and I hope you'll be able to find the answers to those questions using those resources. We do have two major scholarship schemes. Again, these are delivered in collaboration with the FCDO, and unfortunately, possibly for many of you, again, they are targeting postgraduate students, but I think it is important to bear them in mind, because clearly, if you're making that decision that you wish to expand your education horizons and study in the UK, hopefully at Oxford, what it sounds like to me is that you are likely to have an interest in sort of lifelong learning and taking your education onto higher levels beyond the first degree. So please do think about these. The Great Scholarships is quite a small scheme. Again, it's for postgraduate. There are 9 places available for Sri Lankan academics, which of course you will be by the time you finished your first degree, in partnership with a number of universities in the UK. The information is fully available on the British Council website. The link is there, but I always check these things out, and I just sort of Google British Council scholarships, totally at random to see what comes up and if it's easy to find, and it is. The Commonwealth Scholarships is also a postgraduate scheme, and there are a range of different funding options to include master's degrees, PhDs, split site ones where there's sort of mixed study UK, Sri Lanka, and while the Great Scholarship well, I mean, they all have their limitations. The Commonwealth Scholarships focus on these key areas of development. And again, they are clearly described on the web pages. But as you're taking this, I think, very exciting step to look to study internationally, why not start thinking long term? Why stop with a first degree? Go on for postgrad and your doctorate. Worth thinking about. The British Council also has a number of study guides for students focusing on study in the UK. Obviously, the scholarships, the 2 main scholarships I've just mentioned. STEM, obviously now there's also an interest in STEAM, which feels a bit sort of, steampunk to me. Victorian sort of science fiction, but obviously arts and sort of digital creatives, arts and technology are an integral part of that whole approach. So STEM, creative arts and design, business and management. I don't think I need to emphasise that these are key areas of strength for the British Council, for the UK. We have the guides on the British Council, but they're key, they're key industry areas, and they're areas of strength in the UK as industries, but also in the education and in the training provision for those areas. So do have a look at the guides on the council's website. Now, events. I think this is what is interesting. We held a virtual fair. We held a virtual fair last year because obviously we couldn't do face-to-face. It was very successful, and we'll be holding another Study UK virtual fair in September 2021 in a few months. I appreciate your interest in Oxford, and I really wish you success. However, who knows how things will go, and there are many other excellent opportunities in the UK, so please do join that. We also hold pre-departure briefings. I think it's really important to, if it's online, it's online, but to be able to share some of that detail once you know you're going to the UK, and answer some of those far more precise questions. Study Connect, it's very much about the networking, briefing sessions, and sometimes there's a request for verified copies of your qualifications and diplomas from Sri Lanka, and our customer services team does do that verification service. So much as I would like to have been able to talk about actual study and just the pleasure of spending days in libraries and online and just learning lots of really interesting and exciting new things, and of course that opportunity just to mix with like-minded people from around the globe. I'll finish there. So that's the practical side. COVID regulations, please do look at our website for the scholarships, the study guides, and do continue watching for updates on our social media. So thank you very much, and I think we'll have questions later. Rishan, is that correct?
Yes, we will have questions later.
Thank you. I'll stop sharing now.
Great. Thank you, Louise, for sharing all that you did. And as Louise mentioned, the British Council has great resources which you can also tap into to learn more about studying in the UK in general. Next up, we have Geshika Jayasuriya from Standard Chartered Bank, who will also talk about alternate funding options that students should be aware of when going to the UK. Geshika.
Thank you, Rishan. So good evening, everyone. Pleasure joining hands with Oxford Alumni Sri Lanka. Standard Chartered being a global bank, let me take you through the role we can play in your overseas education journey. Currently, across our markets, we facilitate thousands of students with their education. So your interest comes in first, a unique international student payment proposition takes care of all your requirements throughout this journey. If I'm made to take you through few offerings, we offer financial planning education for children while they are here, and of course, even after moving overseas, so that you know how to manage your funds, your credit card transactions. And by doing that, we're actually prepping you for the future and inculcating a habit of managing your financials from young days. Most of the time, we see customers do not know exactly how much a foreign education can cost, and might even have to face unfortunate situations like having to pass on the opportunity of attending a foreign university due to funding issues. This is where banks come into play. Also, most might not have visibility or knowledge across all the exchange control regulations when transferring funds outside Sri Lanka, and not only exchange control regulations, even visibility towards current exchange rates in the market, which will help you in deciding when to make your payments, etc. Something that we believe financial planning can be excellent savings point if done right, and expertise on these areas can make your education journey not only hassle-free and convenient, but also a very rewarding one. And also as parents, I think we always bent on giving our children the best of education, best of facilities, best of everything. And even as children, we want to have a sound education from a reputed university and of course, a very stress-free uni life. So what we at Standard Chartered do is to handhold you, guide you throughout your journey. From the time you open the student file to remitting every single transaction carried out free of charge. And also there are funding options to host options and host of other benefits we offer, along with priority banking and of course with our partner merchants. Also, one more thing, being a foreign bank, our retail market alone spans across many countries where you can walk in and open accounts. And also we can support you in opening accounts even before you leave. So there's a lot more value we can offer as a global bank. My advice to you is plan properly, even your financing and funding, just like picking the right university, right investment be in education, ensure your financials are also taken care of. So finally, before I conclude, I want to thank everyone joining us today. My colleagues and I look forward in connecting with all of you, supporting your overseas education journey as you are our priority. Thanks, Rishan, over to you. If there are any questions, I'll take after the session.
Rishan, I think you're still on mute.
Thank you, Geshika. sorry about that. As Geshika pointed out, there will be a section at the end where you can also approach her directly in a breakout room and ask her your specific questions. Next up, we have our applying to Oxford session with James Brown. James leads the international recruitment team at Oxford and is primarily responsible for undergraduate recruitment across Asia and the Middle East and Gulf regions. Prior to working at Oxford, James managed student recruitment across most regions of the world at the London School of Economics and Political Science. James last visited Sri Lanka as a 20-year-old in what now feels like the midst of time in 1999 for him. He has particularly fond memories of Kandy and Norelia, particularly the beautiful train ride between the two, where he was able to lean out at the side of the train and take some lovely photos. Still allowed, but probably not recommended. And wherever they went, they found friendly people and delicious food. Welcome, James.
Thank you very much, Rishan. As you said, it's been a long time since I've been in Sri Lanka, and I would love to be able to have the opportunity to come back soon if things change in the near future. Thanks very much to the Alumni Society for inviting me today. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm just going to share my screen and go through the presentation with you. Just maximize it there. Okay. So what I'm going to do today is a sort of 10-minute intro to Oxford, and then what I'm going to do is look at the applying side of things, giving you some useful information if you're thinking of making an application at undergraduate level. Now, I am solely responsible for undergraduate studies. We have a separate department for graduate level, so for Masters and PhD, but I can point you in the right direction if those of you who are attending who are interested in graduate level study. So let's start. So what makes Oxford such a special place is really its academic reputation. It's really the #1 reason why people want to study with us. And this has been the case for centuries. It really has been a world-leading centre for learning and research. Indeed, it's actually recognised to be the oldest university in the English-speaking world. We don't actually have a clear date of foundation. We're not quite sure, but we do know that teaching existed at Oxford in some form since 1096 and rapidly developed from 1167, when Henry II banned English students from studying in France. These days, we're very much a modern research-driven university. And above all else, it's a university that brings together academics and students alike who are deeply, deeply passionate about their subjects. And it really is a place where you'll be surrounded by those who really are experts in their fields. Talking of this, you'll probably be very much aware that Oxford is the centre of groundbreaking research. Our research spans many areas, and notably in recent times, of course, our fantastic researchers in the area of vaccines who worked at unprecedented speeds to develop a vaccine for COVID-19, which has, of course, been spread throughout. The vaccine has been rolled out throughout the UK and many other countries besides. But there's a lot more to our research than vaccines. Artificial intelligence, we're at the forefront of climate change. Our researchers are at the forefront also of building quantum computers, which will have a hugely transformational effect on societies all over the globe. One of the key things too is that that Oxford really is a very, very international environment. It's obviously situated in the heart of a very, very traditional and beautiful UK city, but it really does thrive on all the connections it has around the world. So today, around 350,000 graduates live and work around the world in over 200 countries. And we welcomed our first international student in 1190. So we do have a lot of experience of welcoming international students to Oxford. To move on to talk a little about how Oxford and Sri Lanka relate. So we have 19 Sri Lankan students at the moment. And you can see just the one undergraduate student. So this is a fantastic opportunity to increase that number, I hope. There's the Oxford South Asian Society. There are many, many societies. There's over 400 different student societies at Oxford, the South Asian one being just one of those. And of course, the Alumni Society, who have organised this event for you all today. And one of your former Prime Ministers studied at Oxford in Christchurch, actually, many years ago too. What I wanted just briefly to do is have a quick look, a quick look at the most popular subjects by application for Sri Lankan applicants in comparison with the overall picture. So you can see that medicine, number one, and it's a very clear sort of leader in terms of popularity for Sri Lankan students. That much I discovered yesterday when I was looking through the statistics. Economics and management, also very popular. PPE, politics, philosophy, politics and economics, a real standout course at Oxford, of course. Followed by law and then engineering science. So those are the top 5 courses by popularity for Sri Lankan students. And you can see in the column to the right, it does differ somewhat when you're looking at the overall picture. You can see that PPE is number 1 there, and that mathematics is sort of a part of that. So it's something to be aware of. Medicine happens to be one of the most competitive courses you're actually going to encounter for an international student at Oxford. So it's something to bear in mind, and also to think about some of the other courses that we have on offer too. So I'll talk about that a bit later. Just before I go into the applying side of things, I did just want to talk about some of the unique things, I think, that make Oxford such a special place to study. I've talked about the passion that our students and academics alike have, and this really very much is the case. It's about studying what you love. It's about, our students really are deeply passionate about their chosen discipline. And what we will offer you are rigorous, demanding, but deeply inspirational courses. And you'll be taught by some of the world-leading figures in those disciplines. You'll have a rare level of personalised attention also from academic experts. And key to this is the tutorial system that we have at Oxford. This is central, really, to the way in which we teach and learn. They're fantastic. They're the opportunity for you to have regular, rigorous academic discussion about your courses, about whatever it is you're studying. And they're very small groups. So they're essentially conversations, usually between 2 or 3 students and their tutor. There's students I've spoken to this year who've just been having one-to-one tutorials with their tutors. So fantastic small group learning opportunities. They really do develop your thinking, your ability to articulate your thoughts. Really are a wonderful part of being a student at Oxford. They're regular. You'll have to prepare essays for most of these tutorials on a weekly basis. You know, there's nowhere to hide when there's 2 or 3 students only to tutor. So it really is extremely rigorous, but wonderfully rewarding. So Oxford is a collegiate university, and that means that I think Iran referred to this. There's over 30 colleges at Oxford, and it can be a little bit confusing, but hopefully I'm going to demystify this to some extent for you. One thing to note at this stage is that your tutorials take place in your college. It's also where you will live. Some of the lectures take place in the broader university, but your tutorials will take place in your college that you will be assigned to. Okay, so let's move on to, we'll talk a little bit more about the colleges later, but I just want to turn our attentions to the applying side of things. Now, the first thing, and then I think the most important thing, is choosing your course. Now, choosing your course really is the key to whether you're going to have an enjoyable, successful 3 or 4 years with us. It's really crucial to enjoying it. And it's really important that you explore all of your options. I've referred to the fact that medicine is our sort of leading program for Sri Lankan applicants. But we have things like biomedical sciences. There are other courses as well that you might like to consider, biology as well, of course. We actually have 49 different undergraduate courses. So don't necessarily just focus on the ones that you may have heard of, or the ones that perhaps you know someone who has studied it. Really give yourself the opportunity to look through the full range of courses that we offer. And also, what you might find is that some other courses might be slightly less competitive for places than others, due to the numbers of applicants. So it's also about being a little pragmatic too. So really do delve in deeply. And this advice applies to all of the universities that you are thinking of studying in if you're considering studying in the UK. Do look at the full range of courses that those universities offer. Also, make comparisons between those universities. A subject at Oxford might be taught and learned in very different ways to the same subject in a different university. So look at the course structure, okay? Look at how it's assessed. All these things really are quite important when it comes to making decisions of where to apply and where to study. 1 or 2 things that you can do and approaches and tactics you can take is to choose a favourite subject, something that you really enjoy doing at school. You could continue doing that. I have to say it's likely to be very different at Oxford, whether it's a subject you enjoy currently. Another option that students take is to combine 2 or even 3 subjects that they enjoy. We have many dual degrees at Oxford, combined degrees. And the third option is to try something new. Try something which maybe you haven't already studied, or that you've studied more generally and that you can specialise in at Oxford. So again, it's about looking at that full range. And also bear in mind that you can see the quote there from my colleague Jonathan Black, who's the head of careers at Oxford. The vast majority of jobs don't actually specify the subject studied at university. So the skills that you will derive from studying with us really will stand you in extremely good stead. There's obvious exceptions. Obviously, if you want to become a doctor, medicine is necessary. So there's obviously some exceptions there. But just to bear in mind, for many different disciplines and different careers, it's not necessarily hugely important exactly what you study. So just bear that in mind. A few resources that can help you on your way. Oxplore is our sort of resource there for helping you identify courses and the things that you're interested in, and tackling some of the big subjects that we face around the world. So it's a really good tool to help sort of hone in on the area that you and the subject that you could study with us. Lots of other resources too that you can find and utilize. I'd really encourage you to do this, something called Staircase 12, HE+. iTunes University, Engineering, BMJ, which is the British Medical Journal, all sorts of different resources that will really help you just to kind of identify the areas that you can study, but also when you come to put the application together, really will help to have done some reading up there. Okay, so presuming you're very clear about the subject that you want to study, the course that you want to apply for, what you must then do is to see whether you are on target or have already met the entrance requirements. Okay, so it's very important that you do that. It is expected that all applicants will meet those. It's highly unlikely that you'll be given a place if you don't. We do accept a range of different qualifications. The Sri Lanka Advanced A level, for example, where we're asking for 3 A's, but we also accept the British A levels, as you'd expect, and also the International Baccalaureate, and you can see the grade ranges there. A few things to mention here. We accept many other international qualifications too, and there's a link in the bottom right-hand corner where we have the equivalencies for all of the international qualifications that we accept. AP is another one. There are many. There really are very many. So if you are studying something which is not one of those curricula there, do have a look at the international qualifications page that I put the link to there. One other very important thing to mention is that some courses, well, every course has a specific entry requirement. So maybe one course would expect you to get a 38 in your international baccalaureate qualification, or maybe it would be a 39 or a 40. You can find this information out on the course pages. So it's really important, again, you delve deeply into the course requirements as well as the course information. I'll give you guys a link to that at the end of the session. There are obviously also English language requirements that we have, and again, I'll provide you with a link to those. We accept many English language qualifications, and for some of you, if you've been studying A levels or IB, it may not be necessary for you to fulfill those. Some of those will be acceptable too. Okay, so college. Okay, now colleges, really, again, like the tutorial system, colleges are a fantastic part of being a student with us. The university actually doesn't have a central campus, but it is made up of those 35 plus colleges and halls, and they're spread across the city centre and beyond. And I have to say, the colleges really are at the heart of what makes Oxford such a special place to study and live. There are some colleges which have great history that are ancient. There are some that are much newer. You may find that the buildings that they are housed in reflect those different ages. So something to be very much aware of. One thing I really must specify is that you don't actually need to get your head around the college system too much, because you can simply make an open application to us, and we will then assign you to a college or hall where there are fewer applications for the course you applied to study. So it's absolutely okay for you to specify a college if you have done lots of research and you think, yes, that's the college for me. But it's also okay to not do that, and you are not at any disadvantage if you make an open application. Okay, so it does help, I think, especially for international students who might not be wholly familiar with a college system. So just hopefully something to reassure you that it needn't be quite as complicated as you may think. What you can do, if you want to have a look at the colleges, they all offer virtual tours online. Do have a look at them. And I must say at this stage, and I will tell you again at the end of the session, we are actually having virtual open day tomorrow and the day after. And all the colleges will be there, and it's a great opportunity to talk to students, to talk to tutors. It's all online. You actually can just sort of show up on the day, and I'll give you the link to that at the end of the session. So this is a great opportunity. So hopefully this will introduce you to it, and then you can come along to our virtual open days in the next couple of days. Okay, let's go into the heart of the application system. Okay, so applying to Oxford is a bit different to applying to most other UK universities, though there are also some similarities. You do need to apply essentially a year before the start date of your course by completing the online UCAS application form. Now, the UCAS application form is the form that you will use for all UK universities, and you make 5 choices of different universities on that application form. Okay. Now at Oxford, our deadline is the 15th of October. If there's any date you're going to sear onto your memory, it's that date, because after that point we do not accept any applications. So you must submit your application through UCAS by the deadline of the 15th of October. And that's the same every year. So at Oxford, what we're looking at is, on the UCAS form, we'll look at your personal statement. We will look at your academic achievements so far, the grades that you've achieved so far and your predicted grades. And there will also be an opportunity for your school to give us a reference, which we'll be looking at. But at Oxford, in addition to the UCAS information, we also, for most courses, you will have to take an admissions test. For some courses, a few, not many, you'll need to submit written work. And for all applicants who are shortlisted, you will attend an interview. Okay, so all applicants are interviewed. So let's go into a little bit more detail about that. I'm just slightly conscious of time, so I'm going to try and speed through. So this is the application timeline, just to give you a sort of an overall sense of how it looks. It's I'd say a sort of 6-month process, if you like. But once you've submitted your application on the 15th of October, it's actually very brief. It's 3 months. So it starts off with the UCAS application. The sooner that you start thinking about that, the better, about your personal statement, where you tell us why you want to study the course. You can, on the UCAS form, you can also indicate the college that you've chosen, if you've chosen one. Remember, it's okay if you don't. You write your statement, and your teacher will upload that reference. What you must do around June, July, so around this time, if you're thinking of applying this year, is also check whether you need to take a test. So go on our website, I'll show you the link to that, to see whether you need to take a test. If you do, which is quite likely, you will need to also register for that test by that same date, by the 15th of October. Okay, again, it's that date, 15th of October, do remember that. So you must register and prove to us that you've registered for that test by the 15th of October as well. Now, to take the test, you'll do so in a local testing centre. More than likely, it will be British Council for many of you. So you can, on the website that I'm going to give you, and you can see the link there, you're able to find test centres local to you where you can take that test. The test itself is actually usually taken around early November, though there is an exception to that with 1 or 2 of them, such as the LNAT, which is for law, and the BMAT also is a bit earlier. Okay, so that's sort of, you should be doing that around now, just figuring out whether that needs to be the case for you, and then you take that, you find that test centre and register there. Now, obviously, October is the big deadline. Make sure that information or the UCAS form is in to us by then. And then any written work that is needed, possibly, you will need to submit that to your college by the 10th of November. Don't worry about that. The college who are administering your application will contact you with information. Interviews are held in December, and decisions are issued in January. So let's go into a little bit more detail. A few things, hopefully to blow a few myths here. Things we're looking for and things we aren't. Okay, so the things we're looking for, really at the heart of it, is your academic ability and potential. That's what tutors are looking for. Your enthusiasm for the subject, your knowledge of the chosen subject too, obviously the subject requirements, the ability to cope with the demands of studying at Oxford. It's rigorous, it's challenging. Your intellectual interest and initiative. All these things are really, they're an important part of the selection process. Things that aren't considered are your background. We do not specify any particular background whatsoever. Your college choice, absolutely, again, it's irrelevant to us. So you can make an open application, whichever college you might choose is fine by us. And also your extracurricular activities, they are not considered as part of the application process too. Okay, let's quickly look at the personal statement. Am I okay, Rishan and Haran, with time? Have I got a couple more minutes? Can you give me a thumbs up? Or a thumbs down, I mean. Okay. Sorry if I'm going a bit longer than anticipated, but it is useful information for you, I think. So the personal statement is the section of the UCAS application where you tell the 5 different universities why you want to study the courses that you've applied to study with them. So take some time planning this. You want to give as good impression as you possibly can. It is important. So plan it, make sure that your spelling and grammar is perfect, is flawless. Tell us about reflect on your academic motivation for studying the course. Now, of course, because this is going to 5 different universities, you mustn't mention any specific university. That's a bad idea. But you're talking in general about the subject that you're applying to study, and usually the subject is the same at pretty much all the universities. We recommend that you attribute 80% of the statement to the academic, including the supercurricular. Supercurricular are the things that you've read, the things that you've explored about that discipline outside of your school studies, things you formed opinion on, things you've watched, things you listened to, podcasts you've listened to, whatever it might be, things that are academically relevant but aren't on your school curriculum. Okay, 20% you can talk about the extracurricular if you want. Like I say, we'll never decide an applicant based on extracurricular activities. But if you think there are some really interesting things that we should learn about from you, you can put that in the 20% or so there. Okay, admissions tests. Most courses at Oxford require you to take admissions test. For medicine, of course, there's the BMAT, the Biomedical Admissions Test. You can see there's quite a range of different tests according to the subject. The link in the top right hand corner there, that gives you full information about tests. So just familiarize yourself with what's required. So whether you need to take a test, the test registration, and then you can also have a look at past papers on our test pages as well. So it's your responsibility to ensure that you're registered for tests. And I have to say that if you don't take the admission test, your application will be significantly affected. Whether it's that you didn't register for it or you didn't attend on the day of the test, it's a real no-go area. Do your test. It's very important. Okay, so identify the 3-step process. Identify which test you need to take. Find the test centre. Register at the test centre. It should be a 4-step, and then take the test. Okay, so test preparation. On that link you can see in the top right, lots of past papers. My advice is don't do too many of those. Don't drown in previous past papers. It won't necessarily help you. Just have a look at them. Look at the way that questions are formulated. You'll start to see patterns forming of the types of questions that are asked. And do 1 or 2 in practice conditions, in test practice conditions. But don't do 10 of these. There's absolutely no point, okay? And you'll just make yourself stressed. So don't do that. All right, the final step, interviews. They're all online this year, for obvious reasons. They were all online last year, for equally obvious reasons. Now, there's a lot of myths about interviews at Oxford. I've heard all sorts of crazy stories about interviews at Oxford, none of which are true, okay? So what is true is that it's an academic conversation. So it's a conversation about the subject that you love and feel passionate about with someone who also does. It's actually like a short tutorial, and of course the interviews are actually, what they're trying to do is recreate and give you a sense, and our tutors a sense, of how you will perform in a tutorial-like situation. Okay, so they're structured, but they're surprisingly informal. You don't need to get all dressed up. It doesn't matter what you're wearing. It's really a case of what you're thinking about the subject. That's the most important thing. So what the tutors are looking for is obviously your academic ability and potential, but your motivation, your ability to think independently, your ability to engage positively with new ideas. You can almost be guaranteed that the tutor will introduce some new information at some point in that interview and see how you respond to that and how you think about that and approach those questions. So my top tips are: think out loud, really important, think out loud. If you're not sure about a question, just ask them again, it's absolutely fine, no problem about that. And in many cases, there's no specific right answer. Okay, it really is the case for many of the questions that we ask you. There's no specific right answer. So try not to get too stressed, try not to get too worried by it. It's a wonderful thing to have been shortlisted for the interviews, so do enjoy those, and the tutors are there to support you through those as well. Just to flag up again, they will be all online, and even in normal times, international students tend or very often will take those online anyway. Okay, that's it from me. That's a whistle-stop tour of applying to Oxford. I hope that's been useful. Just to emphasise again, the virtual open day is taking place tomorrow and the day after. That's the link. Really would be fantastic to see some of you there. I'll be doing some more sessions, Q&A sessions for international students alongside some of our current international students. So it could be very useful there, and all the colleges and tutors and lots of other fun stuff will be happening too. So do come along there. But also online, of course, we have information for international students, lots of information about applying, and the course information. Please do thoroughly look at that course information. Thank you very much, and of course, we'll take questions after.
Thank you very much, James. Yes, as James mentioned, there will be a virtual open day happening at Oxford, and we will share those links with you after this presentation as well. We'll now move on to the moderated Q&A, and this will be with current and former students of Oxford, including myself. So on the panel, we have Cowcher, Munasinghe, Megumi Yamamoto, Amuthan Chandrakumar, and Shatuki Pereira. So Cowcher is a former student at Oxford who read a bachelor's in jurisprudence. Cowcher was at St. Catherine's College for her bachelor's and afterwards worked for LOLC in Sri Lanka. Though now she is just beginning her master's in the US, where she's at Brown University, so she may have to leave this call at some point to go to class. Megumi Yamamoto, who is a former student of Oxford, read a bachelor's in politics, philosophy, and economics, PPE. Megumi was at St. Peter's College and is currently working as a solicitor in the UK. Amuthan is a current student at Oxford, reading for a master's in linguistics, philology, and phonetics. Amu is at St. Hilda's College and is the current treasurer of the Sri Lanka Society in Oxford. So there is a Sri Lanka Society in Oxford, which you can also get involved in when you're there. And Shatuki Pereira is a current student at Oxford in her first year, reading biology. She's at Jesus College and applied to Oxford as a home student as she moved to the UK from Sri Lanka in 2014. Welcome to all the panelists. I guess I'll start first with Cowcher and Megumi, I guess. When you were applying from Sri Lanka, what was something that you wish you had known about Oxford, i.e. the tutorial system, or something that students will benefit from?
So
Cowcher.
is it okay if I go, Megumi?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead, Kish.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Cowcher. And Roshan's right, I have class in about like 40 minutes, so I need to run in a bit. One thing I wish I had known when I was applying to Oxford is definitely about the tutorial system, just the accountability that you need to have. The tutors really put a lot of faith on you to know that you can pull your own weight. They're not looking for you to know all the answers, but they're looking for active engagement, and they're looking to be asked questions themselves. They know the data very well, but they take away something new from every class as well. So just like be confident and learn how to navigate reading lists because they're long and you don't need to read everything on them.
What about you, Megumi?
Sure. So I think what I wish I'd known when I was applying, I think, was probably that the interview process is something to be enjoyed and something to be seen as a kind of privilege to be allowed to do, rather than something that is to be feared and sort of, over prepared for, and and really something that is stressful. Like, yes, of course you're going to be nervous, of course you're going to like everyone wants to get in, right? Like nobody wants that rejection letter. But I think the idea that you are sitting in front of two experts in the field who are giving you 20 to 30 minutes of undivided attention, and all they care about is to see how well you respond to the questions and arguments that they put in front of you. I think that's something that I really wish that I had known going in, rather than sort of just being kind of on edge and watching for their every move to see what they wanted to find out. So I think in terms of applications, that's something that I would like to know.
Okay, moving on to the other panelists as well. One thing which you each found challenging in applying and how you handled it, is it like the interviews, the application? What did you find challenging? And again, if we can start with Keisha and then move to the others, just to maximize on her time.
So you said interviews and application, right? What was challenging?
Yes, one thing you found challenging in applying.
Yeah. In applying, probably just how to write my statement, my personal statement persuasively, not as a restatement of my CV or my resume, but rather something that would express my knowledge so far about what I was applying for, which was law, but more so how interested I was in learning, like tutors I was excited to work with. You do work very, very closely with your tutors at Oxford. The contact hours are very high compared to other universities. So just how to come across excited, but also come across prepared for the challenge. Interview-wise, like Megumi said, I think she put it very succinctly and very well, is that they're not trying to assess you. They're not trying to make you trip up. They're just trying to see how you would fare in one of their classrooms. So if you don't know something, ask them. I actually am unaware of this. What is your input? I would love to hear a little bit more about what you think about this. They just want to know that you're someone that they can work with because they are working with you in tutorials.
Amu, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I would agree with Kesha actually, in terms of personal statement. I think that can be the challenging thing, just in the sense of knowing what to put in it, how to frame it, knowing how sort of detailed you want to go into specifically your field, your experiences, and kind of go into detail. At the same time, you don't want to turn it into an essay. You want to keep it somewhat general and kind of talk about yourself. So knowing how to create that balance. James was talking about in terms of the 80-20 thing with 80% academic and 20% extracurriculars. So it's kind of knowing the compositions and the balance and how much of what to put and how much for it to be about yourself, how much about the subject and so on. So that I think is really the challenge. And it's the part that really you feel like you're communicating who you are the most, because a CV is just a list of information and so on. Your grades are just numbers. But it's sort of your opportunity to convey, who you are as a person, kind of reveal yourself. So I think definitely that's the challenge.
Thank you. And Shatuki?
Yeah. So in terms of the application process, I think the most challenging thing I found was like coming into it out of like because the Oxford application process is like so unique. And coming into it, like not knowing, being like a first generation student and like, not knowing about how universities would work as like in the beginning. And so I found like coming into it, it was a bit scary almost. But then I think with what James said as well, like doing your research, and I feel like loads of you have already taken the initial step because you're attending these sessions. But then knowing getting like into the doing the research for what are the steps that I needed, which I found like keeping like a notebook and knowing like that timeline that that James showed, I found very helpful when I was applying, like which bit that I needed to do by when. And and in terms of personal statement, I agree with what Amir and Kesha said, but it's showing passion for your subject, because I applied for biology and I actually didn't have a admissions test, so that meant that a lot actually relied on my personal statement and my grades, so to show my passion for the subject. And like my love for biology actually came from growing up in Sri Lanka, and I started by saying that this is where my love for biology comes from, and then and then through school I develop this, etc. So I think they want to see where your real passion for the subject as well. And in terms of interviews as well, because none of the other universities that I applied for biology needed interviews, so that was also very daunting. But I also thought that I found help from my teachers at school mostly, because being from a state school as well, and if you're applying from Sri Lanka, I guess like you will be like one of the only people that apply to Oxford. So I think your subject teachers will really like be up for helping you and putting all the effort that they can. to help you. So I think being engaging and taking the extra step and going and asking your teachers to help. So I did some practice interviews with my biology teachers, because that's what the interviews are most likely about, like your thinking and like and them asking you questions and thinking through different things, because they want to know how you're thinking and how that will help in your undergraduate or your graduate degree. So yeah, I think taking the extra step and showing that you really love your subject, that's I think where I got my upper hand from, because I just love biology. So I just I just showed that I did, and then yeah, but yeah.
Yes, that's a really good tip, to use the resources that you have at your disposal right now in terms of teachers and all, and to practice beforehand. Megumi, what about you?
In terms of something I found challenging in my application, I think it might be a bit unique, in the sense that I read PPE at Oxford, which obviously is 3 different subjects combined in one course. So I had to address all 3 elements in my personal statement, which was a challenge in itself. And that was also compounded by the fact that there aren't all that many universities that offer PPE, and certainly not necessarily ones that sort of, when I looked at all the courses I wanted to do in the UK, I wasn't sort of like, okay, which 5 universities do PPE and I'll just apply for that. So for example, like I applied for, I think it was something like politics and economics at the LSE. I applied for, I think it was politics and international relations at somewhere else. It was sort of, you know, different variations on a theme. But what I really wanted was my PPE offer from Oxford. There's also the fact that Oxford, the application for submitting your personal statement is earlier, so it's the 15th of October. So I think it was kind of negotiating how I word my personal statement to get the offer that I wanted, while other universities knew that I was applying for a PPE course at Oxford. And I think, you know, I basically took quite a high risk strategy, and just went, no, this is what I want. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to everyone. I think, you know, a lot of people think very carefully about, you know, what are your primary objectives? Are you sort of, you know, is this your end goal, or are you sort of like quite happy with different variations? Or so yeah, I think it could, as I said, it could be pretty unique to the fact that it's PPE, but I think it would be the same if you were applying for things like economics and management at Oxford, but like business somewhere else, or if you were applying for history and politics at Oxford, but pure history somewhere else. So I think, yeah, that would be my big challenge.
Yes, that is valuable information. I think, as you mentioned, it is important to do what's relevant for you, because different strategies work well for different people. My next question is, what do you all wish you had known about Oxford in your first week, first month, first year? I remember when I went for tutorials, I was not sure how these things work, because you have no interaction in class almost, and then you have hyper interaction in terms of tutorials. So what were the different things that you wish you had known about beforehand? We'll start again with Kesha, because she might have to go.
Thank you. One of the things that I thought I knew was, well, I read law, jurisprudence, so it's very, very wordy. There's a lot of text to get through. Don't take all of your text to class. Make notes. Some tutors don't even allow laptops in class. It's that sort of place. So just take your own notes, be comfortable with what you know, understand key takeaways, like write out a list of what you thought the key takeaways were. And if you share those in class, that'll be very much welcome, because someone else might have a different takeaway and you'll be the starting point of the interaction. And that's very, very highly valued. The second thing I would say is really, really work with other people. You're in a college system. It's a very different, and it's a privileged position to be in, as opposed to like the dorm system in other universities. You learn with your cohort. In fact, some of your classes may be in your college, you eat with them, you go to the bar together. It's like a very, very like familial environment. So work very, very closely with them. It's not curved. Anybody can get a first, anybody can get a 2-1. So there's nothing to be lost from working with other people. So I would say right off the bat, just like do that. Yeah.
Can I? Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
That's fine. I just wanted to add to Kash's point, because I really agree. I feel like coming into like such a prestigious university like Oxford, I feel like you might have that that barrier. You're thinking that, oh, like people here are from like prestigious like schools, for example, that you might, you know, because like imposter syndrome is like a real thing, where you might feel like, you know, like you're just like an error in the admission system, that's why you're here, type of thing. And I feel like having an open mind and like knowing that other people also like talking to other people, and it's really easy to have like, oh, that competition type of thing, but at the same time, mostly like, because I've just done my first year exams, prelim, some of the grade boundaries are already set, so you're not really competing with each other, whereas you could really work together and then like succeed together. Whereas I feel like, especially coming from like the Sri Lankan school system, where it's very competitive, and yes, it is competitive here too, but then at the same time I feel like having an open mind and like talking to each other and like sharing experiences together, that also helps with like, oh, you feel imposter syndrome too, me too, you know. It's like, yeah, I feel like knowing that different people from different backgrounds, like that's something that's great about Oxford too, that you have so many people from different, you know, different parts of the UK and like the whole world. So I feel like coming together can be like a really enriching experience. So I think, yeah, communication with other people and being open to other people's ideas and help.
One thing I definitely love to add to that I should have said earlier is that your tutors are very much there to help you. They will know all of your names because you work very, very closely with them. Do not be afraid to email them and approach them outside of office hours, like on their own time. It looks bad on them if you do badly. And the amount of submissions you have per week is very, very high. So they'll know exactly where you are and they want to help. They won't send you to a final exam if they think you're going to do badly. If they think you're even going to get a 2-2, they won't send you. So please do reach out to them, and please do get every single bit of help that they have to offer. My tutor drafted me a study plan. Like, this is the lengths that they're willing to go to help. So definitely do that.
Thank you. I think, Keshe, you can leave when you have to. Because we're short of time, I just wanted to ask Amu and Megumi how they selected their colleges, just to give people an idea of how to go about that process.
So I actually did it open, and I ended up in St Hilda's, which I was really pleased with. I think that on some level, you almost naturally end up at the place you belong. I think that colleges have their own internal cultures and their own way of doing things, and a lot of the time, you know, in my case, when I left it open, I found that you sort of fall into the right place because your application sort of reflects the place that welcomes you. So that was my experience. I don't know about Megumi.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, because so St Peter's, just by background, is a very small, intimate, very international college. I think the year that I started my course, the year that I was matriculated, was when I think for the first time in the college's history, there were, I think, something like 60% female undergrads and 40%. It was really celebrated as this sort of big sort of watershed moment for the college. And it was amazing how you know, comfortably I fit in, and how sort of, you know, how much more sense it made, or, you know, and that's something that I think is actually quite difficult to know, is the culture of each college. I think one of the things that I can pretty much guarantee you is that no matter which one you end up at, you will grow to be very fond of your college. And, you know, I mean, we have ridiculous rivalries that, you know, still carry on in our professional roles. You know, I'm now 5-6 years out the game. So I think that's definitely the case. I think in terms of applications, yeah, I think identify, you know, what would you like? I mean, if you have any preference at all, then I'd probably say, you know, make the application to the college that you have a preference for. But if you genuinely have no, preference whatsoever, then make that open application and kind of and let the university admission system decide where you might be best suited. Pick certain, so for example, whether you want a larger college, an older college, does your college offer the course that you want? Does your college offer accommodation for all 3 years? I think all those are things that you can find out pretty easily online, just through the websites. And I guess through open days and stuff. But in terms of the culture of the colleges, I would try and explore, different networks of yours. Also get in touch with the college themselves to see if there are any students that you can have a 20-minute, 30-minute chat with, just literally, just about what the college is like. If there are open days that the colleges themselves are doing, I'm not sure how that's functioning in the virtual world that we're living in now, but there used to be college-specific open days. There are all these sources of information that you have access to. So I think from an applications perspective, that's what I would recommend on colleges.
Thank you all very much. In the interest of time, we'll probably move to our general Q&A session. And I guess this panel will still exist in a breakout room. Hiran, do you want to?
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Rishan. Look, keeping an eye on the time, it's now coming up on 5:40. I'm sure there's lots of questions out there, and I think given that we have the benefit of breakout rooms, we're going to move straight into the breakout room so that people can direct their questions specifically at the panel members that they want to talk to. Just a couple of quick words then to wrap up. We won't be coming back into this plenary to wrap up at the end, so this is sort of the quick wrap. I have to say, I found this session really informative. So thank you so much to all the panelists for, spending their time and energies to share the information and knowledge that they have. Out of everything that was said, I think the two things that really stood out for me, one was the statistic on the number of undergrads from Sri Lanka that we currently have at Oxford, which was 1. I found that really, surprising. And actually, I see that as a huge opportunity, right? I think Shatuki on the panel said, talk about your unique story when you make your application, right? And really, it seems like, given that there's only 1 undergraduate in the entire University of Oxford that's from Sri Lanka, your story is going to be a unique story, quite likely. And so I think the more people that apply, I think the more this sort of story gets told. So I really hope that a lot of you will take advantage of this opportunity and think about making an application and tell your unique story. And hopefully Sri Lanka will be a part of that story. The other thing that also struck me on a slightly lighter note was the point about the virtual tours. That was really exciting to know that there's virtual tours of each college, so you can make a better informed selection. Again, when I applied, it was only the single picture at the back of the prospectus to choose from. And in my case, that actually was the wrong picture, because my picture was from the college looking out rather than back in. So I picked my college based on a picture of the RADCAM, for those of you who are familiar with the RADCAM. All right, so look, thank you once again to all our panelists, our banking partner for this event, Standard Chartered, and everyone who took time. We're going to move into breakouts. Each of the panelists is going to be in one of the breakout rooms. So you will be, as a participant, be able to choose, okay, I want to go and speak to Louise from the British Council, so I can go into the breakout room where Louise is and ask a question. Please make sure that when you get in there, you wait to be called on by Louise to speak, or whoever the person might be. You can then move between rooms as well. This call will be open until 6 p.m. at least. If the panelists are able to stay on for a little bit longer, then we may run a little bit over. But the last point is we will be sending out an info pack to everybody following this session. So you will receive some of the information that we got to share with all of you that will help you with the application process. And I think that's really it from us on the plenary. Rishan, any final comments before we move to the breakout?
No, as Hiran said, thank you all for joining us. As all the panelists said, you guys have made the correct step in attending this talk and learning more about the university. we encourage you to keep getting information about the university and the different universities that are also out there.
Brilliant. Look, so the breakout rooms are now open. If you go to the sort of the panel of Zoom, you'll see there is an option there to select from the breakout rooms. The speakers are being moved into those breakout rooms, and you can go into whichever one of those rooms you would like to and ask questions. So the session is now officially over. This is sort of, if we were in a live session, this would be kind of the bit at which you get to go and mingle with some of the speakers and ask them questions directly. Thank you.
Thank you.